All right, everybody, we are on to the next section of Unit 8, which is eating and feeding disorders. So put that up at the top. All right, so eating and feeding disorder is basically any maladaptive behaviors that are centered on food intake or avoidance. Okay, and we'll talk about some of the main ones, but there are definitely some other ones as well. Okay, so the first one that we're going to talk about is called anorexia nervosa. Typically, it's just called anorexia. And just so you guys know, these anorexia and the next one, bulimia nervosa, are kind of one of the most dangerous disorders out there, like life-threatening, because it does impede a lot in their physical health. Okay, so this is basically anorexia nervosa is an intense fear of weight gain or becoming overweight. They have a distorted perception of their own weight or body shape. Many times they can develop body dysmorphia as well. So in anorexia nervosa, they have to also have a like persistent restriction of caloric intake, like the calories they take in. And many times they go to like extreme weight loss. However, this is a little bit controversial when it comes to like the eating disorders because, you could have somebody with anorexia and they can have like a normal weight. And you wouldn't really know unless, over time, excessively, then, you see that extreme weight loss. They also will have exercising constantly, constantly checking their weight. They will have like compulsive checking of their bodies. And then they also talk about their fear of weight gain. They typically have, again, like very strict daily calorie intake, right? Typically below what is recommended. They also have like phobias around certain foods. And they could even also hoard some food. And then they may even take like this obsessive interest in prepping food for other people, but refuse to eat. Okay, so anorexia is more restricting when it comes to food. Okay, now this one actually has a really high risk of death and short-term and long-term health or medical consequences. Okay, so make sure to write some of these things down. This disease, I'm sorry, this disorder, there's a higher risk of suicide. There's also damage to cardiovascular, their heart, kidneys, and their gastrointestinal problems as well. They can also have problems with their menstrual cycle because they're not getting the nutrients they need, which can often lead to infertility, which is not being able to have children later on. They could also have bone damage and then tooth damage or lose teeth as well, or lose actual teeth. So this disorder, typically you see it in females. However, what they're finding out is that there's a lot more males as well that are experience anorexia, but since it's very much like the stereotype of just women, a lot of men don't go and get help. Okay. Then the next one is going to be bulimia nervosa, or just bulimia. And this is basically very similar when it comes to like anorexia, in which they'll restrict their food intake, but then they will have what's called like secretive binging, which binging is going to be, and I'll write it down here just in case for spelling. And binging is going to be like eating a large amount of food in a small amount of time. Okay. And then what usually happens after in with bulimia, they'll eat like do a binge and then they will do some act after to compensate for that behavior. So either they'll purge, which is like vomiting, like self-induced vomiting. They may take laxatives, which makes them go to the bathroom, or diuretics, which can just be like that they have to increases their urination, so get rid of fluids. They may fast after that, or they'll do excessive exercise. Okay. And this is typically called like the bulimic cycle. And then what will happen is that they will have a binge, and then they'll purge or get rid of it or compensate. And then after that, there is what it would be like shameful. They feel shame, or they start going depressed, right? Or anxious. And so then they'll restrict, they'll, hyper focus on exercise or food, and then they'll have a binge, and then the cycle starts again. The shame, they'll restrict, binge, like that. Okay. And then the next one, which is a newer one that they added into the DSM-5, would be the binge eating disorder. And this is very much like bulimia. The only difference is that they do not purge. So they'll have recurrent episodes of a binge, right? Which is excessive, eating excessive amount of food in a short amount of time. And then, but they don't purge. But then after the binge, they'll start feeling the shame, anxiety, depression, and so they'll restrict, right? And then that's it. They start again, they don't eat, or they'll go into like the binge and the same thing. It's kind of like the same cycle with binge eating. The only difference with that is that there's no purging. Okay. And then the next one is the pica. I'm not sure how you say that, but pica is the one that the person eats things that are not edible. Okay, so they may eat like objects, and obviously it could be very dangerous. So it could be anything from erasers, dirt, just about anything that's not food related. Okay, and that's basically it for eating disorders.